Meet me in the foyer.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for meeting me in the foyer. Wonderful news. We are joined again by Linda Marrick, our unraveler of cinematic riddles. How are you doing, Linda?
I'm good, thank you. Busy, stressed, but
Well, this is
alive.
your hour of calm and
Yeah,
your sanctuary for a little while, where you
yeah.
can just chill out with me and chat movies.
Mhm.
So this week, Linda will be cracking the code of two new movies, competing for your pounds at the box office, and I'll be traveling the length and breadth of the land and back again in time to bring you my thoughts on my oldest classic cinematic offering yet. But before that, why don't we start, as we always do and should, with a review from Linda. So what have you got for us first this week?
This week, I think we're going to go with the film that's already in the cinemas, so you can go and see it now, and it is 28 Years Later.
Don't look at what's in front of you. Moving up and down again. Moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. It is not fire, devil, dark, or anything but moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. Rise, 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 rise. Think of something different. Oh, rise, rise. People going down it. Moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war.
Which is the third installment in these, not sort of, I mean, I wouldn't call it a franchise, more like a series of films. The first one, which was 28 Days Later, which is a seminal zombie movie, probably one of the best and most sort of cherished zombie movies of all time. A film that isn't just a horror movie, but is a sort of a commentary on the way we are as human beings, and how we deal with each other in crises and stuff. And we had 28 weeks later, a few years ago, a film that kind of passed a lot of people by, because it was a very, what I would say, minimal movie. It wasn't such a big budget movie, but it still had all of those themes in it, all of those exciting sort of, what does humanity become when humanity no longer exists, and people have to sort of do with what is left. So yeah, that as I say, that passed many people by, but it's still a fantastic film. And this is 28 years later, which is actually, I think it's 2 decades since 28 days later. So I think, let me see, 22 and 2002. Yeah, so 23 years since that movie. And this time we have Danny Boyle's back behind the camera as director, and Alex Garland writing again, the original team from the film. Cillian Murphy, who starred in the first movie, is producer here. There are two more movies coming in the franchise very soon. They're all interconnected with this latest movie. So I hear that Cillian Murphy is likely to be in the next two, possibly, but who knows? This is takes place as its name lends to it. It takes place 28 years after the outbreak of the rage virus, which decimated most of the UK. So it is quite an interesting commentary on isolationism of the British Empire, of the UK, really, because the UK seems to be, and we are in a world where the UK seems to be the only island that's been infected by this disease and that hasn't beat it, and it's been quarantined from the rest of Europe. And I mean, if you can pick up on that allegory, obviously it's a lot to do with Brexit, a lot to do sort of being an isolationist nation, of cutting ourselves up from the rest of Europe, and that is to our detriment rather than to for the good of the nation. And so yeah, 28 years after the outbreak. Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Jamie, a survivor, a scavenger, and Jodie Comer is Isla, his wife, and the Alfie Williams, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant a young actor called Alfie Williams playing Spike, their son. So Jodie Comer's character is they are living on Holy Island. I don't know if you know Holy Island. There's a Linda's Farm.
Uh,
Holy England, in sort of in the north of England, and they are cut off. Basically, it's a really safe, like it's like a fort. They've built this kind of community within the island, and they have that where none of the zombies can get to them, and they've somehow managed to survive for the 28 years by isolating themselves again from the rest of the country. And what happens in this community is when a kid it comes of age, he has to be taken by his father or an elder to go and kill his first zombie, so that to show him how to sort of survive the end of the world, and to be able to sort of go and forage for the rest of his community. On his first outing, they come very close to being murdered by several zombies, and within that time, they also sort of encounter this mysterious doctor, who's you could say is up to no good, but we don't really know what his actions are. And meantime, Jodie Comer's Isla is suffering. Is basically there's something wrong with her. She's in pain. She's losing her memory. She has something wrong with her physically, and she doesn't understand what's happening to her. As a young woman with a young child, she has absolutely no idea. She's been sick for a while, but we don't know what her ailment is. And I'm going to leave it there because that's where it's the setup of the story. The rest of it is just truly, in my opinion, magnificent. 28 Days Later is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's one of my favorite, not just horror movies of all time. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love post-apocalyptic narratives, but at the same time, I really like those kind of narratives that use politics or philosophy or sociology to sort of. I mean, Romero did that for many years, from the 70s onwards. All of his zombie movies were, Day of the Dead, all of those like original 70s zombie movies were just a commentary on society, on how we are, what we have become. We've become the zombies are us. Our humanity is just goes on with their eyes closed. And if you remember this scene in both actually Day of the Dead, in the original and the remake, which the 2005, I think 2003
yeah, sounds
remake.
about right.
I can't remember. Yeah, both of them take place in this shopping center, a mall, where and the reason one of the characters says, "Why do they come here?" and says, and someone says, "It's because that's all they know what to do." And
Mm.
it's at that moment where you realize that we are the zombies. We go shopping like zombies, buying stuff that we don't need, and um, with 28 days years later, what it does, it actually forgoes those kind of narratives where it tells us about humanity is that surviving is actually surviving something as big as the end of your world, perhaps not the end of the world because elsewhere there's life still goes on. um, it robs you of your humanity. You become this kind of you no longer know who is the beast and who's human. So in the case of the character played by Ray Fiennes, this mysterious doctor, his what he becomes is something very strange because he has seen so much death, yet he's still alive. He's still sort of going about his life, burning all the corpses and the bodies of the people who have fallen, who've been infected by these zombies. There are so many things here. There's also halfway through it, not halfway through it, I'd say about three quarters of the way into it, a really miraculous thing happens that is very much reminiscent of Children of Men. If you are familiar with that storyline and sort of where humanity has to seek a miracle in order to continue. So there are a lot of things in it. There's one scene like right at the end which has had me in stitches, and I've been thinking about it so for the last week or whatever, or 10 days since I saw the movie. So and there are characters that appear right at the end of that movie. Those characters are going to be in the next movie, and it's quite
Okay.
exciting, quite funny. And and the film actually opens on a scene of a bunch of kids watching Teletubbies, and then everything goes to shit within 5 minutes of that setting. I think it's fantastic opening to any movie about zombies or otherwise. Yeah, loved this movie. Fantastic. Gave it 5 stars in my review, and I would give it 5 stars again. I'd like to go and see it again. I haven't seen it yet again, so I'm happy to go and pay my money and go and see it again this time around. So, and what I don't often double watch movies so soon, but because I have to say I've not been a huge fan of Danny Boyle for a while, and I am a fan of his work.
Yeah.
I really am. Like I've liked all of his movies, but I think of late I've not been as excited by his stuff, and this I feel like he's really this is. I'm so happy that he had this in him, and he's given us this, and I'm so excited to see what he does with the rest of them. Just wonderful movie, probably film of the year for me so far. Film of 2025. I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't see this win tons of awards towards the end of the year, especially in the UK. I don't know how it will play out abroad, but I just felt like it was such a fantastically sort of philosophical sort of state of the nation, kind of
Mm.
thing. Just fabulous, brilliant stuff. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've heard suggestions that it's, potentially the film of the year, certainly the British film of the year. Um, I was thinking it would probably do quite well in America because it's a zombie story and, that
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic world. But maybe you're right because it is quite British centric, set on the UK islands, and the
Mm.
cast is almost, I mean, the cast is entirely British, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, it'd be interesting indeed. Yeah,
I mean, the original, the cast was all British, and
yes,
8 days later, it's a very popular movie abroad. So,
yeah.
it is, it's, I think it will baffle some people at the end. There's the, like, as I say, the exit scene, the end, end scene is very silly, it's very audacious, and I really like that he had the balls to go with that. And nothing annoys me more than people who don't have the sort of the strength or the like, in their own ideas. And I always admire it. It's pretty much the same thing, like when um once Upon a Time in Hollywood had that scene at the end with the fighting, and it
Mm.
kind of changed I really like that because I find that very audacious. I find that very sort of not doing exactly what is expected from you, and I
Yeah.
really like that. Yeah, just fantastic movie, really great.
Really intrigued to know what this moment at the end is, but of course, yes, that's being discussed in very sort of roundabout ways, and try
Yeah,
not to.
yeah, I won't tell you anything about it.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it's intriguing. It, I have. I mean, as I've said many, many times, I'm not a horror fan, and I have watched 28 Days and 28 Weeks, um, only the once, I think, or maybe twice, and not for years and years. It's
Mm.
really not my thing. I mean, of all horror films, of which I'm not a fan, zombies are my least favorite area. I just find him. I don't know. I get the sociology of them and the sort of analogy, but once I sort of get that, it feels like a bit of like a one joke comedy. It's like, okay, I get the point you're making. What happens now? And then you're still there for an hour and a half. But the way this film's being talked about, I'm really intrigued to see it. And as I say, I've seen the others. I need to see this one too. Um, of course, that's a commitment because, as you said, there's two more to come. So yeah, no, but fascinating.
I
Uh,
don't personally. I don't really see. I know what you're saying. There's an origin. I don't really see them as zombie movies. Just zombie movies. They're about survival, about surviving the end of the world, or the end of your world, or the end
yeah.
of your society. The society falling around you. And I really like that idea. I'm not, it's not the zombie movie tropes that I'm interested in when I say I like zombie movies. I really do like zombie movies. I like all the 70s zombie movies. However, what I like about them is how fragile our world is, how fragile society is, and how easy it is for it to descend into complete chaos
Mm.
within seconds, within minutes. And that idea I'm really interested in. And I think that's, for me, that's why I love these movies, because I've always, in the back of my mind, I've always said society is hanging by a thread. And we can see it now, you know.
Yes.
We
Well, I
can
mean,
see it
that's
with Trump. Like, uh, how do we live in a world where someone like him says something and it could be false, and yet it doesn't matter if it's false.
mm,
It just goes to show that how fragile we all are, how fragile our this fake world we've built for ourselves can just crumble, because it's almost like someone has gone, right, that's it, everything you know is wrong, everything you've black is white, white is up is down, war is peace. It's that kind of 1984 thing where
yes.
nothing matters anymore. I think that's what I like about these zombie movies. And fair enough. I don't think every zombie movie works, and I don't think every zombie movie is there for any kind of sociological or sort of has any sort of merit. But at the same time, I do love a good zombie movie, even World War Z, which is a terrible movie. I still really find things to enjoy about it. I think that's I went to, I saw it on its opening day, and I think there's another one in the making, and
Oh, yeah.
I'll be seeing that as soon as I can, if I'm invited to a press screening. So, I never pass on a zombie movie. That's just
It's
me.
funny because it's the society hanging by a thread, end of the world stuff is another reason I don't like them, is because I think, life outside the cinema is depressing enough as it is, and then
Yeah.
and then you go, oh God, you sit through that and you're like, oh, okay, I'll shuffle home like a zombie myself after that.
Mm.
It made me think though that Planet of the Apes are almost zombie films in that respect as well, aren't they? That sort of what
Yeah.
happens when society breaks down.
Yep.
They've got a sort of different twist on it.
Mm.
And I quite like the Planet of the Apes movies, I have to say. Even the remakes.
Yeah, I think those movies are brilliant, actually.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
first
they are
one especially
fantastic.
I like.
Yeah.
I remember watching the first one with John Lithgow, and the final scene of the movie where suddenly the virus starts spreading. I've actually felt quite terrified in that
Yeah, yeah, with
moment.
James Franco.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Of course, that was pre-pandemic as well, which was yeah, that was a wake up. Fantastic. Well, that's your first possible choice for spending your wages at the cinema this week. Sounds like it'll be a good one indeed. So why don't we now run down the box office top 10 as we record? It's quite interesting this week. At 10, The Ballad of Wallace Island is still hanging in there. That's the comedy from James Griffiths, starring Tim Key, Tom Basden, and Carey Mulligan. At 9, Karate Kid Legends is still in the top 10. 8, The World of John Wick Ballerina, also still in the top 10, although I imagine this will be quite a different top 10 by next week. At 7 is one they put in just so I can mispronounce it. Sitari Zaman, par Indian language sports comedy. At 6, fantastically, The Salt Path, still in the top 10. The biographic drama from Marianne Elliott. At 5, Mission Impossible, one of the flops of the year, sitting in the middle of the top 10. That's going to absolutely cost that studio a fortune. I feel like this is going to mean it'll be a lot of years before they reboot that franchise. You know,
How much money has it made? It might be able to just wash its face, as they say. Like, it might be able to.
I think internationally it's made about 300 million.
Yeah.
But it needed to make about 600 million, I think. So
Yeah, you know, they only have themselves to blame, because I think it's made so far on top of it. Oh God, yeah, it's not made enough. I think probably once it goes into streaming, it's going to make another couple of hundred, maybe. Like, as I say, it will wash its face. It will sort of pretty much. It hasn't lost any money.
no,
It's not made a ton either. So it's not $1 billion movie. So
no,
yeah.
it's just. I remember in the pre-release promotion, they were saying, "Oh yeah, it's called Final Reckoning, but there might be more." I don't think
Ain't
so.
going to be more.
At
But
4,
as I say, like, they only have themselves to blame, because that first hour is what killed the movie. Is what you know. I as I say, the rest of it is a 5-star movie. Unfortunately, whoever's had the idea of recapping the whole thing has cost the studio tons of money, unfortunately. So
yeah, another 2 flops in a row, really. Is not good. At 4, a success in the top 10. Lilo and Stitch, the sci-fi comedy live action animation remake. At 3, we're back on the other side of the coin. It's Elio, a surprisingly soft opening for the new Pixar film. I mean, I said previously they've missed the school holidays, but it's actually worse than that, because I've read it's actually Pixar's worst opening weekend ever. And
yeah, I don't think it would matter. It won't matter, because the repeat watch on this will make up for it in the future, when, you know, on streaming, or on which you call it, not DVD, whatever, you know, but on streaming. I think it's not a complete flop. I don't think it's complete, which is surprising to me, because I really love that movie and everyone else seems to really love it. So
yeah,
it's just bizarre.
There's a lot of theories about it, but you know, as people say, it's an easy explanation, but you know, it's another case of an original IP not making the money back that franchise and sequels do. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind.
At 2, a success, How to Train Your Dragon fantasy live-action animation remake from DreamWorks. And as you've just heard, the new film from Danny Boyle has already made it to the top of the charts. That's 28 years later, the coming-of-age horror sequel.
It's 60 million first week, 60 million, which is not bad at all. I don't know what its budget is.
Interesting.
Yeah, let me see what the budget is. So its budget is 60, and it's made 68 so far.
Oh, fantastic.
So give it another couple of weeks and it will have tripled its takings. I mean, a film like that made with only 60 billion, that is quite surprising to me, actually. It's very good, for what it is. So
it's a clever boy, that Danny Boyle. He's a clever boy. And that is the box office top 10 for this week. So why don't we return to Linda and see what else she has in store for us?
I can do Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic World.
Right, okay.
Which I just saw yesterday. Jurassic World Rebirth.
Are those?
Spinosaurs.
Run, Bobby! Look out!
My next film is like one of the most highly anticipated movies of the summer, which I actually think is going to do very well. I mean, from the reaction it got yesterday at the screening, I saw it yesterday at screening. I didn't go to the premiere. The premiere was last week, and I only just saw it at a multimedia press screening, and the reaction was fantastic, really, actually, from the offset. This is again directed by Gareth Edwards. As soon as I say Gareth Edwards, but he's become somewhat of an expert in these monster movies, and there is so much here that you can tell that this is someone who really, really loves this franchise, someone who has so much respect for the IP and so much respect for the originals, the original movies, rather than everything else that's come after it. And in all honesty, I don't think I've liked a single one of these sort of more modern Jurassic Park movies or Jurassic World or whatever you want to call them. So Gareth Edwards, I think, is one of the greatest filmmakers of our time. Especially he's in the stuff that he's done with with sort of
Godzilla.
Godzilla, yeah. He's done other stuff as well, Godzilla and
Monsters.
monsters and other stuff. He's the kaiju stuff is his forte. He really, and there's a lot of homage that's being paid to all of that stuff in here. The story is the story is a bit sort of all over the place, but I think the premise doesn't even matter, because once you get into the action, there's so many different action set pieces that are so brilliant and so reminiscent of the original. Actually, even more. There's even more action than the original. Because the original does get lull you into sort of a safe kind of state. Takes you into this really wonderful place, and just where you introduce to the possibilities of this could what could mean for the future and blah blah blah. This throws you in straight away. Now we are living in a world where uh, dinosaurs are living amongst us, and they're even in the opening scene is in New York. Well, the second opening scene. I'm not going to talk about the first opening scene because that is a kind of a big plot to a thing. So I want to leave that scene on its own. But the second opening scene is in New York, where there's absolutely huge, massive. I don't really know any names of dinosaurs, so do excuse me. A herbivore dinosaur is about to keel over and die because they don't seem to be able to live anywhere else but in the equator, sorry, because it's not they can't breathe properly and the weather is not very good for them. And so, and then Scarlett Johansson has been hired, is a mercenary, basically, COVID operation expert, has been hired by Rupert Friend's Martin Kreb, who's pharmaceutical representative, like a think Peter Shkreli, or someone like that, someone who makes tons of money from researching and inventing these life-saving drugs and then selling them for tons and tons of money instead of making them available to everyone. So he is the villain du jour. Obviously he's played by a British guy, so why not? Mahershala Ali, who deserves to be in more films. Actually quite annoying that this man has been in hardly anything over the last 10 years, or over since Moonlight. He's been in some stuff, but he was in Moonlight, one of the best movies of the last decade.
Yeah.
And we hardly ever see him in anything, which is really sad. Jonathan Bailey is Dr. Henry Loomis, who's a paleontologist, a really nice guy, a bit sort of shy, but he also has got his heart in the right place. He's been basically transported alongside the Scarlett Johansson's the character to go and search for this mythical creature where that they need to get their DNA so that they can develop this new drug. So Ed Skrein is also a member of the team. They all find themselves sort of on this boat, and once they're in the Pacific, I think they're in the Pacific, they are get attacked by some marine monsters that are sort of descended of what would you call them? The kind of amphibian dinosaurs. I think that's what they are. Yeah. Um,
Aquadino.
yeah, that's it. And then meanwhile, this a family is on a pleasure boat sailing to the other side of the world, and when they get attacked by this absolutely massive marine animal that that is not so much a whale, but like a 5 to 10 times bigger than the biggest white whale. All in all, the group, they're almost killed, so they call for an SOS, and they get picked up by Scarlett Johansson's boat. And when things fall apart, they all end up on this deserted island where the research has been done on these dinosaurs, and all hell breaks loose when things start happening. And it's an island full of dinosaurs, obviously, so that was a case of run for your life. There's so much here. There are so many little but action set pieces like peppered through the movie that you don't know where to look. It's so well done. It's so brilliantly done. It's so much like the little sort of homages being paid to tons of other movies, including like actually the opening scene when you see the Jonathan Bailey character, the Henry Loomis, the doctor. There's like some ticker tape falling off. Do you remember the like a little banner
Oh, yeah.
falling off, which pays homage to the original scene in the original movie where the banner falls off. It's so good. It's so well done. It's so fun, and dialogue is brilliant. Acting is fantastic out as well. And Gareth Edwards' direction is just fantastic. Again, he is the king of kaiju. He's the king of monsters. He knows what he's doing with the subject, and he knows what he's doing with the sort of the tone and the look of it. I don't think anyone else would have it. They should have given him all of. I mean, I don't know how many of these movies he's going to make, and I think perhaps if this turns into sort of a proper reboot for the franchise, I'm assuming that Scarlett Johansson is going to be part of this, and she's so fantastic. I love her. I think she's, such a brilliant actress as well. Like you really believe her um, in any kind of role. And I'm so glad. I mean, there is at the end there is one scene where you think something really horrible had happened, and then in the end, and things turn out to be actually okay. And I'm really happy because that means that person is also going to be part of
Mhm.
whatever sequel is going to happen. I just hope they don't fall into the sort of the boring sort of, like the usual sequel sort of fatigue. This has the possibility of running for longer than the movies that were made before it, the middle. I just hated those movies in the
Mm.
middle because they didn't have any conviction. I felt like they were made by people who had zero respect for the original IP. They had no respect for the early movies. They had no respect for Crichton's story either. To be able to make a Jurassic Park movie, and this is again, Steven Spielberg is executive producer. And it's Amblin. It's made by Amblin anyway, so I think it's safe to say that it has Spielberg's hands all over it. And if you're going to make movies like this, about a movie that is really, really loved, like a sequel to a movie really loved by people, you've got to really love that original movie. You've got to have some respect for it and not just make it for the money. And I am hoping that this is going to do well. I'd be so surprised. I would be really, really surprised that, I mean, this is actually compared to last summer, I feel like the big movies this year have been really good. Like we've had like so far, we've had the F1 that's been really good. I was not expecting to like it. I really love it. 28 years later, I really liked. What else did we have? I mean, there's been some good movies.
Yeah.
Like I loved Elio. I just wish it had done so much better than it did. But as I say, I don't think that matters because if you have a kid and they like to watch stuff on TV, you will stick them in front of it. And people like these animations. Doesn't matter what they are. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say on the subject. Is I really liked it again.
Fantastic. I, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to predict anything now because I'm too terrified after Mission Impossible flopped
Yeah.
and Thunderbolts was considered a flop, and I like that film as well, and
Do you think it's considered a flop, Thunderbird?
that's what I've read. It's
Ah,
sort of
it's done all
frightened.
right.
I think it's done all right, but not.
Yeah, well, at least it's got some like a really good sentiment behind it. I think loads of
Yes.
it is a critical success,
Well,
which
that's
actually,
the thing, isn't it? We're living through a
yeah,
weird era of good films not going huge at the box office for some reason. They'll get critical praise. The people who see them say this is a good film, and then it just doesn't blow up.
yeah,
It's
sorry.
a weird time. It's a very weird time. Um, so it sounds like this is a fresh take on the
Yeah,
franchise.
yeah, 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 definitely. It's a proper reboot.
Yeah.
Proper reboot, yeah.
I mean, I It's funny you call Gareth Edwards King of the Monsters, and I
Mm.
look at his filmography, and it's actually his two non-monster his two sci-fi films that I love. I think Rogue One.
Oh yeah, I love
Don't,
Rogue One.
don't want to anger
Love Rogue.
Star Wars fans, but I think it's the best Star Wars film.
I agree. I'm
Uh,
100%. I agree. It's more like a war movie. It's like a World War Two movie, isn't it? It's like an invasion. It's like a D-Day movie, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, I was put off watching it for years because I'm not a big Star Wars fan. But then I thought, well, I'll sit down and watch it. I'm blown away, absolutely blown away.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I
fabulous.
really love the creator as well. I know that was sort of mixed for people. I was slightly worried when you said that this has a sort of the plot's a bit messy at times because that's
It's not messy. It's just it has a lot to do. I think
okay.
I think it's really good because it doesn't give anything away, and I think that's done deliberately because I guess they have plans um to do more of them.
Yeah.
I must say I was talking about it earlier to somebody else, and I said I guessed pretty much every single twist, but that says more about me than anyone else. I don't think that's going to be the case for everyone. It's just that I have seen so many movies in my life. I see up to 400 movies a year, probably more. I see everything that comes out. So it's only normal that I've got like a tuned ear for sort of plot devices, and I know what's going to come up. I not only guessed every single twist, I even guessed the sort of the bits that were being going to be used to do something or that thing. So it's a very bizarre thing. I'd be very interested to see if you agree, and I know because you watch loads of movies as well, but I watched like I'd say about 400 new movies every year because that is part of my job. But at the same time, I never get tired of them, even if I can guess what something it's kind of satisfying when that thing happens, the thing that you thought was going to happen happens. It's almost I don't see it as predictable because I love cinema and I forgive it for being that way. So I kind of like for me it's quite satisfying.
Yeah, it's just you're good at your job. It's you're an expert, and even me, I don't consider myself an expert, but as you say, I watch a lot of films, and I guessed the twist in Sixth Sense right at the start. I
So
didn't mean to. I
I know,
guess
same.
I guess the twist in Old Boy,
Mm.
and a friend of mine didn't believe me, and I was like, no, it's not that I'm saying I'm clever. It's just that you get attuned to these
Yeah.
plot
Yeah.
devices, as
If
you say.
if you see so because let's put it this way, not everyone sees as many movies. If when you're a film critic, it's a very bizarre job to have because you are someone who loves film and loves cinema so much. Nobody's forcing you to watch these movies, watching them for the love of cinema, and it's okay to sort of become as long as you're not jaded by it as it's okay if you pick up on the slightest sort of plot twist and or plot device
Mm.
and which leads you to sort of guessing exactly what's going to happen. That's fine. I don't find that. I think that is not a weakness of the movie. That's a strength of your own expertise in film, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I don't know, mechanic who can open the bonnet of a car and immediately diagnose what's going on. He can see all the moving parts and knows exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
That's no, I totally agree. Well, I think I know where my money is going to be spent out of these two choices of new films at the box office this week, but you're free to make your own decisions. Two excellent possibilities for you as you head down to the cinema this weekend. Now, it feels like it's my turn.
Oh, yeah, yeah, exciting.
So, as I teased at the beginning, this is, I believe, I'm right in saying this is the oldest film I will review. I think I've given myself too much credit there. Chat about for the next few minutes. This film is celebrating its 90th anniversary this year. It is a classic in every sense, a brilliant film, and as I say, nearly a century old now. Right from the dawn almost of sound cinema. So Come closer, listen up. Have you heard of the 39 Steps?
Darling, fancy seeing you.
Well, you've seen a man passing in the last few minutes.
This is the man you want, I think.
Yeah, miss, now you're a special constable.
What's the idea? What are you doing
As
this
long as
for?
you stay, he stays.
And if I demand that you allow me to telephone to the High Commissioner for Canada in London.
You better do that from London. You'll be there soon enough.
I have the honor in presenting to you one of the most remarkable men in the world, Mr. Memory. What are the 39 steps?
The 39 Steps is a 1935 spy thriller directed by my favourite director, Alfred Hitchcock, and stars Robert Donat and Madeleine Carroll. It's loosely based on a 1915 novel, The 39 Steps, by John Buchan. And what's it about? Well, at a London music hall theatre, Richard Hannay is watching Mr. Memory demonstrate his powers of fact recall by answering trivia questions from the audience when gunshots are heard. In the ensuing panic, Hannay finds himself holding a seemingly frightened woman who persuades him to take her back to his flat. She tells him her name is Annabella Smith. She is a spy and she fired the shots to create a diversion so she could elude assassins. She claims that she has uncovered a plot to steal vital British military information, masterminded by a man missing the top joint of one finger. She mentions the 39 Steps, but does not explain the phrase. So it concerns a Canadian civilian in London, Richard Hannay, who becomes caught up in preventing an organisation of spies called the 39 Steps from stealing British military secrets, as I say. Mistakenly accused of the murder of a counter-espionage agent, Hannay goes on the run to Scotland and becomes tangled up with an attractive woman, Pamela, while hoping to stop the spy ring and clear his name. It stars Robert Donat as Richard Hannay, Madeleine Carroll as Pamela, Lucy Manaham as Annabella Smith, Godfrey Teal as Professor Jordan, Peggy Ashcroft as Margaret, and John Laurie of Dad's Army fame as John. It was written by Charles Bennett, who did the initial treatment and then the script, and then worked on it with Hitchcock because I think he worked on all of the scripts for all of his films. He was always involved right from the beginning all the way through to the final cut and release. He was a bit of a Kubrick in that way. As I say, it's based on John Buchan's novel, but it actually departs quite a lot from the novel. It's quite a short story. And I've got to say, I think, to be fair, I've read the book, I've got the book. It's that all of the departures are improvements on the book. And those changes and improvements demonstrate what a genius Hitchcock was. He adds two major set pieces, the music hall at the beginning and end of the film, the musical theatre scenes, and the Forth Bridge set piece in the middle, which is one of the great action sequences in cinema, really. He also introduced two female characters, Annabella the spy and Pamela the reluctant companion. So it's impossible to imagine the film without those additions, without the set pieces and without the female characters. He also changed the fact that in the book, the 39 Steps are steps, and in the two other adaptations, they are again steps, and he changed it to a spy ring, which actually makes more sense because it takes out this huge coincidence in the novel where he bumps into Pamela, a Hitchcock created character, and she shows him a map, and on the map is marked this location in Scotland, and he travels there and investigates the spy ring, whereas in all the other versions he just happens to bump into the house where the spy ring lives in the middle of nowhere in Scotland, and where he's on the run, he could go absolutely anywhere. He just happens to find the spy ring's location. So as I say, it was made again in the 50s with Kenneth More in the lead role, and then again in the 70s with Robert Powell in the lead role. The they're all enjoyable, but the Kenneth More one suffers from having Kenneth More in it, and the Robert Powell one is famous, I think, mostly for the hanging off Big Ben sequence. But it's slightly boringly directed as a film as a whole, I have to say. It was made at the time by Gaumont Pictures, who Hitchcock worked for, as their attempt to break the American market. So it follows Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much, and has which was made for 40,000, and this was made for £60,000, which is of course a huge increase back in the 1930s. And most of that was spent on having the two lead actors, Donat and Madeleine Carroll, who were known in the United States. Um, it's influenced so many films. I mean, there's a sequence in it where Hannay's running across the Scottish Highlands and he gets chased by a man in a gyrocopter, which is so reminiscent of Bond in From Russia with Love, which came 30 years later. Um, the you can see, for me, this is the dawn of sort of modern action adventure cinema. If you watch The Man Who Knew Too Much and this back to back, and I'm not saying The Man Who Knew Too Much is a bad film, the original, but it's sort of clunky. The camera movement, or what there is of it, which is very little, remembering the size of the cameras at the time, it's very stilted. The acting's quite stilted as well. It's quite theatrical. Whereas this is slick. There's some beautiful camera work in it. It starts with some sort of Dutch head camera angles. It's very sort of German expressionistic. It's got beautiful sort of storytelling with pictures and no words. It's got witty dialogue. It's got great actors. The leads are both sort of charismatic, especially Donat. He's absolutely wonderful. It really feels like a sort of step forward into modern filmmaking. Um, it's got many Hitchcockian moments, or elements, I should say. It, of course, is one of the first of a sequence of films, which is the innocent man on the run, trying to prove his innocence, which you saw previously in his film The Lodger, and you would see again in his film Saboteur, and then again, of course, probably most famously in North by Northwest with Cary Grant. Um, it also has the Hitchcock MacGuffin. It's built around a plot element that, to be honest, I don't know how many times I've seen this film. When I was doing my research, it was only then I went, oh yeah, that's what the plot's about. Just does, it's so irrelevant what the plot's actually about. Apparently, it's about a secret plot, secret plans for an aeroplane engine that the spies are trying to steal. But as I say, that really is utterly meaningless. It's all about Hannay on the run. Um, it also has the Hitchcock cameo, as you would expect, early on in the film, in the music hall moment. Um, and of course, it's possibly the very first film with the Hitchcock blonde. Madeleine Carroll she's platinum blonde in this. She's beautiful. She's unwittingly and unwillingly dragged into this adventure, but she gives as good as she gets once she sort of starts to thaw a little bit to Donat's charms and realizes he's perhaps not the murderer that she believes him to be. There's some lovely moments between them. Um, uh, I also possibly, there'd have to be more research done on this, but might have one of the first, or if not the first, meta moment in a movie when Hannay gets shot at one point, and he's saved by a book in his breast pocket, and he says to the policeman, what does he say? I've never seen a bullet stopped by a hymn book outside of the movies before. It's a lovely bit. And then later on, he says, when he hears the spy, sorry, earlier on, when he hears the female spy's story, he says to her, beautifully mysterious woman pursued by gunmen. Sounds like a spy story to me. So all the way through, you're getting Hitchcock sort of winking at the audience, but none of that sort of punctures the reality. It's like I say, all Hitchcock films are worth watching, but this really feels like the first Hitchcock film to me that would be his template going forwards. Oh, it also he starts a trend in this film that's still going on now of using famous locations in his films. So in this you see uh, King's Cross Station and Piccadilly Circus Station, and of course the Forth Bridge, where and that's been inspired films like Mission Impossible that we've mentioned already today, with its Burj Khalifa moment, or Jason Bourne films in Paris and London and Berlin, or James Bond in endless locations, too many to mention. The Forth Bridge stunt is one of the earliest stunts of this sort of kind in cinema, and again, hugely influential. It's a brilliant moment that he's put in there with Hanny climbing out of the train and down the outside of the train and into the train. Again, only the previous Mission Impossible has train stunts of a similar nature. So the film's almost 90 years ahead of its time, you could say. It got great reviews when it came out. Um, Andre Senwal of the New York Times wrote, "If any work has any single rival as the most original, literate, and entertaining melodrama of 1935, then it must be The Man Who Knew Too Much," which is also Mr. Hitchcock's work. As I've said, it's one of three adaptations of the book. Um, it's but this for me is the best one. It was ranked by the BFI as the fourth best British film of the 20th century. It was ranked by Total Film as the 21st greatest British movie ever made, and the second best book adaptation. Empire ranked it as number 52 on its list of the 100 best British films, and Time Out magazine ranked it 13th best British film ever made. So highly rated by everyone, including Orson Welles, who said, "Oh my God, what a masterpiece." And even Hitchcock himself regarded it as one of his favorite films. Um, as I said, Hitchcock, a master of visual storytelling. The opening is almost silent, just pictures of feet and hands, and then we eventually see the whole a whole of Donut, and the hero we're going to follow for the rest of the film. He's established brilliantly in the opening variety hall scene as Canadian. Without any sort of boring exposition, we find out that he's not an English national, which explains his accent. And then the whole thing just descends into comedy slapstick, which is a nice and a typical Hitchcock moment. Um, Also, it's interesting if you go back to this period, how many films, English films at least, the cast are made up of many nations, a
Yeah.
huge range of sort of European actors. I suppose it's possibly post First World War Europe, people displaced, people looking for work, people traveling across to England and to America to find work in cinema. Um, it makes modern day film seem quite, I don't know, sort of parochial and less expansive and less inclusive in a way, because
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many of those films are full of European actors, but they don't make a big deal of it as
Which
well.
is why it's ridiculous when you hear people moan about casting of certain, sort of, people, certain actors, because it makes absolutely no sense. But film is universal. It's art. You getting upset about a person of color or a non-American person being cast in a movie is neither here or there. It's so silly, and I think we're going backwards, really.
Yes, no, I absolutely agree. It's bizarre that we seem, as you say, we seem to have traveled backwards in the last century. Um, I mean, as I've said, Donat is brilliant. He's got charm, he's charismatic, he's great looking, he's athletic, he's very funny. Um, Hitchcock wanted to use him again and again and again after this, but unfortunately they never managed to make the schedules meet. And then Donat sadly passed away in 1958 at only 53. It has a a villain with a physical abnormality, which of course is now.
Original Bond.
Well, exactly, yes. So I mean, and then that's been a hot topic for a few years now, with
Mm.
people finding that slightly objectionable, that villains, or well, it's sort of the other way around, isn't it? They think, people with a physical difference shouldn't be portrayed as villains. But of course, it's also a great plot device in this. It's not that just he's got a scar on his face like Blofeld or something like that.
Yeah, but I think you'd have to just go back to sort of all the way back to like Grand Guignol stuff, where like the absurd, the sort of the deformed is adjacent to horror, like adjacent to sort of being scared of the unknown. So I think taking that away from the whole from spectacle, it being film or theater
Mm.
is actually a big mistake, in my opinion. And I don't think that's controversial to say, really, because you're not really mocking the disability. You're trying or excusing it. It's just that having that particular thing wrong with you has turned you into this villainous person. It's not the other way around. It's not
Yeah.
you're a villain because you are, you know,
Also,
it's
it's
just
more
a certain way.
it's unrealistic to sort of include uh, people of different physicalities and only portray them as heroes and good characters. You know, they need to play the whole spectrum of possible characters if you're wanting a sort of realistic depiction and a more interesting depiction. And I'm sure people of different abilities want to play a whole range of characters as well. So yeah, it's yeah, hopefully that will sort of move through this phase and into a whole new more inclusive one. It's full of brilliant twists and bluffs and double bluffs. As I say, it's got brilliant dialogue. Um, yeah, again, there's another lovely line where she says to the spy says to Hannah, "I prefer agent," and he says, "Agent of what country?" And she to which she replies, "I have no country." And he says, "Oh, born in a balloon, eh?" It's just a lovely line. Um, there's a scene in the middle where they Hannah and his sidekick, shall we call her, escape from the police car on a bridge in the fog. It's one of my favorite scenes in all of
I
cinema.
love that scene. Yeah.
So well
I
played.
saw it very recently and I can't even remember in what setting I saw it. I know it wasn't at the BFI, so I must have just sat down and watched it because it was on TV.
Mm.
Yeah, I really love that scene. I think it's just such a beautiful movie. Of all the movies that get being remade, I wouldn't mind seeing that adapted into something fresh, but it's by a director who knows what he's doing, like someone that we like, someone who is I can just see like someone like Rian Johnson respect someone who respects the source material.
Yeah.
I'd love that to be remade, and
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I mean that because that whole bridge scene is a set. You know that's all on set, and there's something. I mean, that for me is the magic of cinema because that it's sort of that magical realism that hyper reality is more attractive than reality in many ways. There is one thing in the plot that's always bothered me, and I've never found anyone to discuss this with, in that. Um, So Hannah takes the spy back to his flat, and she's being followed by two ne'er-do-wells.
Mm.
He gives her dinner, and then she takes his bedroom, and he sleeps on the sofa. In the middle of the night, she bursts into his bedroom, and she's been stabbed in the back. And now the criminals or the villains are back outside again, and then
Mm.
they pursue him for the rest of the film. And I'm sat there thinking, hang on, so these two blokes broke into his flat, attacked the woman, and then went back outside to wait for him to come out. Why didn't they just kill him then? It makes no sense to me, that bit. But it doesn't matter because it's a Hitchcock film, and the next hour and a half or whatever is just absolutely brilliant. But that bit always bugs me because there's no logic to that whatsoever, as
Yeah.
far as I can tell. Um, so yeah, just to round up, you can tell I love this film. It's absolutely
I
my
love
top
it as
five
well.
Hitchcocks. It's filled with his dark humor about murder, and also filled with moments of women's lingerie, which is classic Hitchcock. It's inspired endless other thrillers and adventure films. It's mentioned in J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. There's been a stage comedy version of it in London for well over a decade now, and it's gone out on national tour. It's the blueprint for all of the Wrong Man Hitchcock films that he would continue to make. The inspiration for pretty much every other adventure thriller, the Bournes, the Bonds, the Mission Impossibles. There's even a moment in this which is so clearly lifted in The Fugitive with Harrison Ford, where Hannay merges with a parade, which you can see in that wonderful film, The Fugitive. It's widely acknowledged as a classic. It genuinely is. As I said earlier, Orson Welles, the genius, thought it was a masterpiece. Robert Towne, screenwriter, said it's not much of an exaggeration to say that all contemporary escapist entertainment begins with the 39 Steps, and he's right. Oddly, given the success of the film and how good it is, none of the other three Hannay novels have been made into films, which I find very strange, especially as the second one is considered by many the best of the books. As with all Hitchcock films, there's no fat on it. There's no wasted frames. The second the plot concludes, the film just stops, which I always find shocking, especially as a modern film watcher. All of his films do this. North by Northwest does exactly the same thing. Final line, bang, film's over.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, him and all the people who were making movies at the right time, they actually designed what we call now the invisible style, which has become part of what we think of when we think of an action movie.
Yes.
He had just not got to that part by then. He was working towards it. And I think when you think about Marnie and you think about The Birds and when you think about all of those movies, his films are what everyone else started to make after him, because he invented all of that. He invented all of those little, like red herring, the bits and pieces. It's just incredible stuff, really.
Yeah.
I just even though we think of it as it takes you out a bit because it doesn't look like the usual thing we got used to. It's just he hadn't got to that part of the filmmaking experience for himself. Do you know what I mean? He hadn't got to that part of inventing the ending, inventing the hook, inventing that. So yeah.
I mean, I totally agree, but I think a lot of the time the epilogues are so unnecessary. It's just meandering on for like another 20 minutes, and he just goes, "No, story's done, off you pop." And you're just sort of left thrilled. And you're so right that it's not his first film. Obviously, it's he had been working in the cinema for about 20 years by this point. But even so, for it all to come together so early on in this one film is just amazing. I've said it more than once already, but I'll say it again. It's one of the greatest adventure films ever made. Am I right, sir? Of course I am. It's the 39 Steps. Watch it now. You can find it anywhere. And I imagine in 10 years, there'll be anniversary editions all over the place. So there we go. That's the 39 Steps from me.
Brilliant.
And there'll be more Hitchcocks coming up in my classic movie reviews over the rest of the year, because there's quite a few celebrating their anniversaries this year, actually. Okay, so why don't we round up with a little bit of news to conclude this week's episode of Meet Me in the Foyer. It has been announced that Tom Rhys-Harries has been cast in the new DC Batman universe movie Clayface, the actor who has appeared in Guy Ritchie's series The Gentleman, and I recognise him from Doctor Who episode Dot and Bubble, which is one of the best of the recent series episodes. He's set for his first leading role in that film, which is set for release in September 26, as DC continue to make Batman-adjacent movies, but no Batman movies. We've got a trailer for upcoming Bruce the Boss Springsteen biopic Deliver Me From Nowhere, starring Jeremy Allen in the lead role. That's due for...
Jeremy Allen White, maybe, perhaps?
Could be. That's due for release in October.
The bear. The guy
yes, that's the one,
bear.
Yeah.
Going down in the dead man's town. The first kick I took was when I hit the ground. Looked like a dog. can be too much. You spend half your life just to cover it up. Born in the USA. Born in the USA.
In other news, Blumhouse have purchased Twisted Pictures' share of the Saw franchise rights, which is to see a new film and original director James Wan back at the helm.
I have never seen a single Saw movie.
Wow, that
Yeah,
surprises me. I mean,
it has absolutely never appealed to me, and I just the title on its own does not appeal to me. So I never want to see one of these movies. Actually, they in general they're not really shown to the press.
no, okay.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been to a press screening for as long as I remember. Maybe the first one was screened, but I don't think I've ever been over the last, I'd say about 15 years, I haven't been to a screening of a Saw movie as to review. So that's the reason why I haven't seen them. But I don't really like them, and I'm not interested in them.
You'll not be surprised to know that I haven't seen any of them either.
Of course not.
Um, it's been announced Frank Castle, or the Punisher, will make his MCU debut in Spider-Man Brand New Day, with the accountant's brother John Bernthal bringing the anti-hero to the big screen in July of 26. And Duncan Jones, director of Source Code and Moon, two fantastic films, is set to return with his new movie, an animated adaptation of 2000 AD's comic book series Rogue Trooper. It's
Wow.
a New Earth set story of war raging between fascistic Norts and democratic Southers, with a cast including Anurian Bernard, Jermaine Clement, Matt Berry, Haley Atwell, Jack Loudon, yay, Reece Shearsmith, Diane Morgan, Alice Lowe, Asa Butterfield, and Sean Bean.
What a cast. That's a great cast,
Yeah.
actually.
I think we should probably have a sweepstake as to how many minutes we think Sean Bean will survive in that one, because he's not going to make it to the end, let's be honest. And I did have another piece of news. Catherine Bigelow is set to return after an 8-year break with a new
Blimey.
film titled A House of Dynamite, a real-time nuclear thriller set for release on Netflix in October. And of course, the big news, and our last piece of news this week, is that the director for the next Bond film has been announced. Possibly, I don't know if they ever announced a director before they've announced the Bond. I don't remember this ever happening before.
Yeah, they have. I
Have
think so.
they? But it's a big name. It's gonna. I mean, couldn't be more hyped for this now. It's Denis Villeneuve is going to be directing the next Bond film.
When I opened my phone this morning, I went straight on just to have a look on Instagram. I think Instagram was the first thing I saw this morning, and I saw it on someone's title. It said, "Don't even," I thought it was a joke. Genuinely thought it was a joke. I was like, "Excuse me, what?" I think it's an inspired choice, personally. I'm very, very excited by it. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with it. I am so surprised. I'm extremely surprised. Is the broccoli's still involved? I'm guessing they're not.
Only in exec producer roles.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like it's an incredible piece of news. I have nothing else to say. Like he's one of the greatest living director of our time. And some people might disagree. Some people might say it's Nolan. I love Nolan, but I still think Villeneuve is an even greater, more respected filmmaker. And I loved Christopher Nolan. I just, it's not one or the other. I just think he's the master of intelligent sci-fi. What is he? Is he going to do with Bond thing? Is he going to alienate all the Bond fans, or is he going to bring in a new type of fan who is not normally into Bond? And I think maybe Bond needs a good kick up the arse and good sort of, modernizing, not in a silly way, obviously. You still want to have that kind of Bond affinity with it, but at the same time, we need something exciting to happen, and
Yeah.
you can't just I'd be interested to know who the new Bond is. Who do you think is going to be?
Oh, I can't even speculate on that. I most of the actors named I don't really know.
Yeah.
I mean, the sort of the hottest name because it's been so long that sort of
Mm.
people have gone to the top of the queue and then back again. The current or the most recent, most popular one was the Liverpudlian actor who was in a recent series with Sean Bean, whose name escapes me, but. Yeah, it could be absolutely anyone. You know, I mean, Daniel Craig was a
I,
completely.
I think
I
Jack Loudon, who's
think he
a
would be brilliant.
Scottish actor, I think he's fantastic. There's been all sorts. I mean, as long as it's not an American actor, then I'm happy.
Yeah, yeah.
Whoever. They
It's
just,
it's funny you mentioned Christopher Nolan because I was thinking that I so agree that they need a sort of Denis Villeneuve to reboot this. You know, it's going to be a hard reboot of this series. It needs something new. He's a visionary director. I was thinking that they've been going after big fish for a few years now because they tried to get Boyle to do a film and they had Mendes do a couple of films. I could see Villeneuve doing a couple as well. I kind of feel like they had a list and Chris Nolan was probably at number one, in my opinion. And then number two was Denis Villeneuve, and they've got him. So amazing, amazing to see what's going to happen. No idea when it's going to turn up, but
I wonder if Nolan just didn't want to do it, or maybe Villeneuve said yes first. Who knows?
I mean, I could be completely
Right.
wrong. Villeneuve could have been their first choice, and they maybe never even spoke to Nolan. But I imagine they would have wanted him. But as you say, maybe he's just not interested. He wants to do his own things. But we shall see. We
Fair
shall
enough.
see. Um, well, I mean, on that amazing news, Scott was, whetted my appetite for the Bond film, which, as I say, no idea when it's going to turn up and who Bond is going to be. Maybe it'd be so cool if they could keep it completely secret, and then the credits open and the
Oh
music
God,
turns
no,
around.
they won't.
No, it won't happen,
Impossible.
but that would be so cool.
Impossible. There's more of a chance of the moon falling on us and that being kept a secret. It's
Yeah.
just too much of a big production for it to just not come out. So yeah, they're not even going to attempt that, I feel.
So that's the next big news to look forward to. But now it's time for Linda and myself to slide from the stage. The dancing girls are waiting in the wings, and we've got more adventures to complete and spirings to break before we can return. But we'll be back not in 28 years, not in 28 weeks, not even in 28 days. We'll be back in 7 days to share our discoveries with you. So until then, thank you for watching and listening. Thank you, Linda, for your fantastic
Thank you.
reviews and chat. Always a pleasure. So remember, meet me and meet Linda in the foyer again next time. Until then, goodbye.
Adios.
Take care.
Meet me in the foyer.